Happy to answer any questions. Okay. Hastings College of Law.
I'm David Fagman. I'm the acting chancellor and dean at UC Hastings. David Seward, my chief financial officer. I'll start out with some general statements, and then I'll be more than happy to hand off to Mr. Seward to provide maybe a little bit more detail. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your historical support of Hastings. We have enjoyed a tremendous and very profitable relationship with the state of California. We've tried to give back everywhere we can in terms of public interest opportunities, and we have served the state since 1878. Our program is primarily a JD program, so we have the full complement of doctrinal classes as well as clinical and experiential education. We also have degree programs for foreign LLMs. We started several years ago a Master in Studies of Law program, which is a one-year law degree program that was designed originally for health professionals and scientists to learn how to speak and think like a lawyer. This year we are entering into a distance education program. It's the Master's in Science and Health Policy and Law. It is a single degree that will be conferred jointly by UCSF Medical School and UC Hastings. One of our goals over the next several years is to enter into and develop greater partnerships with UCSF as well as other UC and other schools in the area, as well as some in Southern California. A good example of that is a program that I directed, which is the UCSF UC Hastings Consortium on Law, Science, and Health Policy. Out of that program, among other things, we developed what's called the Medical Legal Partnership for Seniors, which is putting a legal clinic in an existing medical clinic for seniors to provide assistance with their legal needs while UCSF physicians are providing for their medical needs and basically addressing the social determinants of health and things that interfere with their well-being. David?
Well, and to some of the points raised by the analyst, as has been widely reported, my name is David Seward, Chief Financial Officer. The school has been responding to the marketplace that we serve. We have reduced enrollment by 25% over the last 4 years, and that has been in response to a challenged job market where many graduates are having difficulty finding employment. These same graduates are dealing with very high levels of student debt. And so we're very pleased with the governor's proposal because it allows us for the 5th consecutive year to keep our fees frozen. Now, this adjustment to the marketplace we serve has not been without challenge. As noted in the analysis, 75% of our revenue is derived from student fee revenues. So we've had to become leaner, become more efficient, become more competitive, and I think we've succeeded in doing so. The marketplace for legal education has stabilized and is sort of indicating some upward trends. Our enrollment numbers for the fall semester look strong, and we value the support that the state of California provides, as well as our affiliation with the University of California. I think oftentimes there's confusion as to our status. We receive no money, no funding from the University of California. We are participants, we buy services, we buy access to programs, but the school is totally self-supporting with, again, the support of the state of California. So we have implemented our strategic plan, adopted in 2011. We have sort of navigated those challenges associated with a reduced revenue base. We have adopted accounting standards that reflect our full pension obligations and liabilities. Those hit the books last year. And I think the school is well positioned to move forward into the coming near future.
Okay. Thank you. I'll have a few questions for you. I don't think any of us are attorneys up here, so no lawyer jokes and no offense to the law school. But one thing I'm not sure if it's troubling, but it's kind of scratches the head a little bit, is that we talk about higher education here many other Tuesdays or Wednesdays. And we're giving more money to the system, UC or CSU, expand enrollment, and they're serving more students. And here that we're giving more money to the grant out UC through the state of California, and we're serving fewer students. And that's just because of the economics of the need for lawyers in society today. And so that's a little bit of a quandary for us. And so how would you respond to that?
Well, I would respond to that by pointing out that, UC Hastings students pay roughly the same tuition levels as other students at law schools in the UC system. A positive byproduct of our reduced enrollment is to align our student-faculty ratios much, much closer to those of our sister UC law schools. When we started our strategic plan, we were at a 17-to-1 student-faculty ratio compared to ratios in the neighborhood of 11-to-1, 10-to-1 for Davis, Irvine, UCLA, and Berkeley. So by virtue of and in the past, historically, we have gone to the Department of Finance and asked them for additional funding for faculty to align our student-faculty ratio to those UC standards. We have aligned our student-faculty ratio much more closely with the other UCs by virtue of reducing our student count. Student-faculty ratio is considered one of the most meaningful measures of the academic experience, how much interaction a student has with their faculty.
Sure.
So I would say that we have aligned our cost structure, our enrollment, to benchmarks that are in place in the University of California system.
And I would only add that as legal education has changed, and this is really true throughout the UC system, but really throughout the country as well, to a more experiential-based learning platform, so that the clinical education, which is inherently more expensive, because one of the realities of legal practice today is that clients don't want to pay to train young associates in the law firms, and so we really need to have our graduates be practice ready when they graduate. So really the economics of law school are changing as well. So I think it's really a combination of things. And quite frankly, we're keeping our fees and our tuitions flat, and costs, especially in San Francisco, continue to escalate as well as LAO pointed out, the need for us to provide scholarships so that our students can afford to go to graduate school in San Francisco.
Okay, I want to ask a question about that issue for financial aid. Of course, you have to have a student population that meets certain standards, and that helps you get more students the next year, and your U.S. News and World Report ranking and all that. And one issue referenced by the LAO is your financial aid package is more generous potentially than other law schools. And so I know you just alluded to that it's partial because of the housing costs, but LA expensive, Berkeley expensive, Davis, and I guess Irvine, those are the five UC. Can you give us kind of a, maybe if not a perfect, back of the envelope estimate as far as what are you doing in financial aid for your students in comparison to the other for UC law schools?
I would actually say, correct the record if that was the LAO's view. We are by no means offering more support than any other of the UC law schools. We know for a fact how much the other UC law schools, so we compete straight up with UCLA, with Irvine, with Davis, less so with Berkeley because they're right next to us and they're a top 10 law school. And so if a student gets an offer, say at Davis, and they're offered a tuition scholarship, say in the neighborhood of $30,000 on a tuition that is about the same as ours, around $46,000, we would try to meet that if we could compete for that student. But we are not offering on average anymore. In fact, we were slow to get into this competition with the other UCs, as well as it's not just the University of California. The University of California law schools, as well as the universities generally, are competing nationally. So I just heard about a student who decided to come to UC Hastings over higher scholarship offers from Cardozo and from George Washington University, both very good law schools, but the person wanted to be in California. And so it really is a national issue, but I would say that we are right in line with the other University of Californias, and arguably rather well behind certain of our UC sister schools. Irvine, for example, is offering up to full tuition plus stipends. I know for a fact that my daughter, who's a 1L in law school, was offered a full tuition ride at UC Irvine plus $10,000 a year stipend. So Erwin Chemerinsky, the dean at Irvine, has been very competitive, and that's just the universe that we're living in today.
Okay, and then last issue, I wanted to pose the question I asked you in our office. You know, some may wonder, you're kind of an island over there by yourselves. Would it make sense to merge with UC Hastings? You wouldn't have to have, UCSF and Hastings. You wouldn't have to have two personnel departments, two human resources, provost and this and that. Granted, we see UC doubling their admin budget, to much of our frustration recently. So on the natural, you would think that you would try to, we would, in an era of limited resources and a lot of demands, try to pool our assets.
That's exactly the direction we're moving. I wouldn't say necessarily that we anticipate a merger down the road, but I do expect a very close affiliation. So the plan going forward is that with the opportunity that the new academic building provides us, when we replace the old academic building, the 198 McAllister 50 Hyde Street building, we will be sharing that building with UCSF, and we will have a shared housing platform with UCSF so that there will be hundreds of UCSF graduate students on our campus. I am now in conversations with the UCSF departments to potentially have them share not only a housing platform in the Civic Center, but also academic platforms in the Civic Center. Once we have the housing and academic platforms in the same place, then your insight is exactly right, I think. The opportunity to share security, to share health services, to share CFO services, general counsel services. Sharing a campus will make all the difference in the world. I know the chancellor at UCSF quite well because he was the dean at the medical school when we built the consortium, and Sam Hogga and I have had this conversation as to whether a merger makes sense for them. Now, they're a health university, so having law school when we are health-oriented, but we also have civil procedure and criminal law and international and comparative law, it would make good sense to have a very close affiliation, to share costs on the same campus, but neither one of us saw the ultimate goal of a complete merger between the two institutions.
Okay, thank you.
We are absolutely that discussion is taking place, and discussions with various departments about their being. So I'll give you an example. This is very preliminary. I'm very close to the director of the Institute for Health Policy Studies, which is now at Laurel Heights in San Francisco. The Laurel Heights building has been sold by UCSF, and all of the departments in Laurel Heights have to be moved to either Parnassus or Mission Bay. And Mission Bay is now oversubscribed, and so one of the questions is where are these departments going to go? And one of the opportunities that we offer is to have these more policy-oriented UCSF institutes and clinics be associated with a law school, a law library, and law students and law classes, and they view that as a great opportunity. And quite frankly, they also view the Civic Center, where they would be surrounded by local, state, and federal agencies and buildings, as also a great opportunity. So we see that it's good for us, but it also is perceived as a very good opportunity for them too.
Quick follow-up on the scholarship issue. You mentioned UCI as one of the competitors. Have you looked at their model as to how they were able to attract more students to their law school? I remember several years ago, like I think it was late 2009 or 10, when they first started their law school, they provided the first class, the entire free tuition to all incoming law school students. I'm not quite sure if they were all private funds they raised to allow the entire first-year class free scholarship, but those are some of the things that might attract more law students to come to Hastings.
Oh, exactly, and the LAO calls it tuition discounting. It's also could be called scholarships. In the Irvine example, they basically gave full tuition scholarships or complete tuition discounting. And I think you're exactly right that providing an education at low cost in California is a very attractive opportunity. I don't have access to Irvine's finances. My understanding, and you would probably have better access than I would, is that it was a combination of private funds, but also backup funding from the main campus. We don't have a main campus for that backup funding, so we are at a little bit of a disadvantage in that regard. I've been in the job, I'm an acting chancellor and dean, so I've been in the job for 4 months, but one of my top priorities is to work on attracting private fundraising to help support student scholarships.
How strong is your alumni?
Excuse me?
How strong is your alumni?
It's very strong. We have about 20,000 living alumni in the state of California.
Any one of them able to
Well, George Roberts is the R of KKR, so his estimated worth, not to take his name in vain, is $5.5 billion. I would say that probably a very large percentage of our alumni base, as would be true of schools like UCLA, Berkeley, and Davis, have what we call the capacity to provide and give back or pay forward for their educations, because many of them went to school when the cost of going to a University of California was under $1,000 a year, and now it's at $46,000 a year. So that's one of the things that we do say to them. Quite frankly, one of the challenges of reaching out to alumni and for private giving is that and I think other deans have felt this in the University of California system, is that a lot of people who go to public schools don't perceive that as part of their obligation. So if you went to Stanford, people think that you give back to Stanford, and Stanford has built a $2 billion endowment. When you look at the University of California endowments, they simply have not been as strong because you don't have that culture of giving. I think that's something we need to change.
Okay, thank you. And I know we have one more item which I think relates to this whole relationship with your sister campus with UC San Francisco, your cousin, I guess.
Yeah, cousin. Yeah, first we consider them our first cousin.
First cousin. Okay, so this item we will hold open until let me revise. Issue number 3 is the April finance letter related to UC Hastings construction. Department of Finance.
Good afternoon, Sally Lukenbill, Department of Finance. As outlined in the agenda, the academic building replacement project was approved in the 2015 Budget Act at a total project cost of $36.8 million, lease revenue bond financing, and that included $1.9 million for the performance criteria phase of the project and $34.9 million for the design build phase of the project. The request before you today is to supplement the design build portion of the project, the original appropriation, by an additional $18.8 million for a total project cost of $55.6 million in lease revenue bond financing. A little context as to how we got here. The project is being delivered using a design build procurement method, and the project is currently in the performance criteria phase. As part of the development of the performance criteria, a detailed analysis of the programming needs for the project and the corresponding technical requirements was conducted, and that programming effort was completed in December 2015. The results of that effort clearly showed that the existing budget is not large enough to accommodate Hastings' program. So we now know that the original pre-designed study and cost analysis had numerous deficiencies. For example, the original analysis did not consider that a significant portion of the building is going to have to be constructed below grade to align the property with the existing sidewalk and with adjacent structures. In addition, the study and cost analysis also did not consider other very important factors related to the program, including potential for tiered classrooms, subgrade placement of primary mechanical systems, communications infrastructure necessary to deliver the program, minimum ceiling heights, and a special it's called a clear span structural system necessary to maximize the small floor plate. So we recognize that the costs associated with these additional items are significant. However, the building deficiencies remain and are substantial, and the need for a new building remains unchanged. And we believe that it's an extremely important project for the state and for the local community. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Okay. LAO?
As you heard, the cost for the project has increased by about 50% since the original cost estimate was done a little over a year ago. Despite the scope has remained the same, so that means that the size of the building and the programs it's intended to house are still the same. That hasn't changed. The administration in Hastings were able to quantify part of the cost increase. They estimate that $2.8 million of the $18.8 million increase is related to the need to excavate. As you heard, they want to put a portion of the building below ground. They weren't able to provide detailed information on the remainder of the cost increase. They cited various explanations that you heard, but weren't able to provide a cost breakout for those. So we would just note that I think they could provide some better information for you in terms of understanding the difference between the original cost estimate and the new one.
Thank you. Hastings College of Law?
Well, this is a very important project because its completion will eliminate numerous life safety issues, ADA issues, as well as structural issues at our existing classroom building built in 1953. We did a complete analysis of our existing facilities, and we are a very dense urban campus located at Civic Center, Tenderloin area, San Francisco, and compared the alternatives to a building replacement and the cost effectiveness of replacing the building even at the revised cost levels still holds true. 80% of our teaching spaces are located in this building, and if we were to attempt to renovate it, it would require us to spend large sums of money on temporary space that may not even be locatable. Classroom functions have very specific fire life safety requirements, exiting, egress. So the basic economics of the project still stand. This building has functioned since 1953, and it's just no longer economical to maintain it and put more good money into bad money into a bad structure. The other element of our campus plan is that we also have a student housing facility located at 100 McAllister Street. It accommodates roughly 280 students and 252 units. That building has significant structural upgrade needs, and so those buildings, auxiliary enterprises, are not state-supported projects. Those activities need to be supported from the revenues generated by the buildings, sports facilities, the same concept. So the approval of this augmentation will allow us to move forward to remedy life safety issues in our existing academic building, structural issues, ADA issues, as well as, upon the completion of that new academic building, allow us to vacate our 1929 high-rise structure, create additional student housing to address a critical need for access to our education, and in a platform that would be co-populated with UCSF students who would also share the whole campus. So this project allows the college to address a core deficiency on the state side of the ledger, as well as address significant issues on our existing student housing assets.
Okay. I have a question. I guess the obvious question is that last year we approved $36 million 18 million more. That's a large increase. I understand labor costs have gone up, but it's a significant increase. And so I guess number one is why? And number two, earlier you mentioned that there's a link now with UCSF, and you wanted to make that link stronger, and they're going to participate and have some type of programs here. So why aren't they paying for half? Why we give UC a line item in the budget every year to take care of their capital needs? It seems like they should be part of the equation here.
So this building that's the subject of the current conversation is referred to as 333 Golden Gate. 333 Golden Gate will replace the academic function of the old 19850, which will be virtually exclusively for UC Hastings use. There may be some excess capacity that UCSF will take advantage of, and they'll have access to the library and access to the cafe, but it's really for the JD program and the main UC Hastings academic function. What it does permit us to do, however, is the next step. So the next step, once we have the academic building set, is when we take down 198 and 50, the old building, and we rebuild the academic functioning and the bottom floors, the bottom 3 floors or so. The upper floors will be housing, and we'll have 10 floors of student housing that will be shared by UCSF and UC Hastings. That building will be a partnership with UCSF. And then as we move down the block toward the student housing, the 100 McAllister building, which is wholly owned by UC Hastings, that too will be a partnership with UCSF. So you're exactly right that as we look down the road, UCSF will be a very close partner with us, but for the first step, that is an exclusively UC Hastings building that will house almost exclusively UC Hastings functions with UCSF participation on top, just as UC Hastings students sometimes use the UCSF library, but we don't really contribute to the UCSF library, we just have access to it. But as we move to a greater partnership, then we will be sharing costs and sharing all functions.
The first half of the question, roughly 50% increase from a year ago. A year ago, you said, hey, it's a big ask of y'all. We need $36 million to build this new building. And we said, okay, with our one-time money. And now, a year later, 50% increase is kind of a steep jump. So not all labor costs have gone up, but $18 million in increased labor costs and supplies, it just doesn't really add up.
Well, we aren't saying this exclusively labor costs. I think the Department of Finance was a very succinct analysis. The initial cost estimate did not adequately reflect building elements that are necessary for a teaching building. And so it's a compounding impact of a initial cost estimate that did not fully identify all the costs that it should have identified, that now with the refinement of our program document, we have a much better handle on, coupled and compounded by the general market conditions in San Francisco. So it's not...
How much would you attribute to rising labor and materials costs versus essentially you're saying you designed the building a year ago and you didn't quite have the right design. You didn't have the elements that are a top-notch law school facility in that initial proposal you put before us.
I can address that if that's okay. So what we came forward with last year, the cost analysis, there was no design in place at that time. It was a very high level and kind of conceptual design, not design, but kind of a conceptual idea of what a kind of a general vanilla space would look like in San Francisco. And it unfortunately did not consider many of the factors that are necessary to deliver this particular program. Coupled with that, the cost per square foot was significantly understated in the first in the first cost estimate. It was $350 a square foot. We now know that it's to deliver this project and all the items that we've listed will be closer to $640 a square foot. And if you ask General Services, could you deliver this project in a different location for less than that, the answer would be yes. So a lot of that has to do with just the general market conditions in San Francisco. So with the price increase per square foot, that's based solely on hard costs of the project. That raised the cost of the project about $14 million. The excavation related to the subgrade structure now with the underpinning and shoring and excavation efforts, that's another $2.8 million. And then soft costs related to A&E services and additional testing and other soft costs, construction management and that type of thing raises another $1 million. So that's basically how it breaks down at this point. It's, again, there was no design at the beginning of this effort, but now we are getting into that phase, and that's where we've determined all these deficiencies.
Is that typical, where we come to the legislature with a proposal for a building that's not cooked, really?
I would say no.
Design?
No, it's not typical. It does happen sometimes. But this, unfortunately, we started out with some, insufficient cost estimate. So
Okay.
this is quite unusual.
Any questions? Comments? Okay. We'll also hold this issue open until the May revise. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none. Hearing is adjourned. Thank you.